There is a group of friends of George Floyd holding a news conference right now, including former NBA star Stephen Jackson. Let's listen to some of that.
I appreciate you all being here. God bless you all.
That's right. Let's go.
Fannie Lou Hamer once said, "We are sick and tired of being sick and tired." And I stand here today exhausted. Black Minnesota, we're done dying. And white Minnesota, you are done hiding. This has been a white Wakanda for far too long, where black bodies drop like flies and nobody does anything. I want to commend Chief Arredondo for taking the right steps and immediately firing those officers. We want to be very clear that we stand with the first African-American chief.
That's right.
Now, Mike Freeman, where you at?
That's right.
Because we saw where you were at with Justine DeMond when it was a white woman in South Minneapolis. We saw where you were and how eager you were to charge and prosecute a black Somali Muslim man.
That's right.
Now we want that same justice. We are here reclaiming our time and reclaiming our humanity.
That's right.
Enough is enough. We want all 4 of the officers arrested
That's right.
and charged and eventually convicted.
That's right.
Those 4 officers stood, kneeled, and killed George Floyd. All humanity should be outraged. I also want to tell you all, what you're witnessing in Minnesota is something that's been a long time coming. I can't tell you how many governors I've sat down with, how many mayors we've sat down with, and we've warned them that if you keep murdering black people, the city will burn. We have stopped the city from burning numerous times, and we are not responsible for it burning now. Mike Freeman is holding up progress. Poverty and oppression is holding up progress. This is not simply looting, this is an uprising. An uprising of the oppressed people.
That's right.
And we also need to call out that there are many disruptors in the midst.
That's right. Come on, talk about
Media, you need to cover the undercover cops
right.
who have been breaking these windows and breaking into businesses. We have images of buildings that have been burnt on fire with specific triangles cut out. These kids are not equipped to do those type of things. So stop painting them out to be monsters. This is your moment where you're trying to create super predators again. We see what you're doing. You're calling in the National Guard. And I got a word to President Trump. And I want to make sure y'all get this word to him. I think that it's crazy that we're in the middle of a global pandemic, COVID-19, and you haven't sent a mass or any resources to the black people in Minnesota. But you were quick to send your troops to kill us? We already been saying it's open season all over the nation, and you just opened it up even more. You were crying, liberate Minnesota when it came to economics, property, and money.
Yeah. Come on, Leslie, talk.
When are you going to tell them to liberate black people in America?
That's right. Come on.
Anyone who believes in humanity, we are asking for you to stand up. This is not just a black people issue. This is a human rights issue, and we are pleading with you. Young people, we are standing with you. We want you to know that there's multiple ways to get your point across, and we are here to help you. You have a village that will help you strategize. I know that you are operating out of pain, and since no one else will talk to you, they just keep talking at you and keep referring to you, but I haven't seen one of them on the ground trying to de-escalate any situation. I've been getting tear gas with you, and I haven't thrown a Iraq yet. At some point, it's called defense.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so again, I will say, black Minnesota is done dying, and white Minnesota, you are done hiding. Your white Wakanda has been discovered, and it's time for black people, humanity to be recognized.
That's right. My God.
Downtown Atlanta, where people are protesting. Again, they are at the state capitol, and so far, Hope, it's been peaceful.
Oh yeah, it's been a very peaceful protest, and that's what the organizers of this protest have said from the very beginning, that they wanted this to be peaceful and stay peaceful for everyone involved. So just probably about 30 minutes ago, everyone ended up at the state capitol. They marched from Centennial Park to the state capitol for probably about 30 minutes. And I believe you're probably watching a little bit of that chopper video of them right now.
Of your screen, folks, the riot police will probably be down there where Sky Tracker is. Those are the folks who are going to start to move in and try to shepherd, which I like that term that Jeff Hollinger used, to kind of shepherd the folks in a particular direction, especially as they continue to vandalize the CNN Center, J. Bell.
Yeah, and one thing that we are seeing, Ron, we were talking about that picture, that downtown picture that we just lost. We were seeing some of the protesters just standing silently in front of the officers. And that is in contrast to what we have seen at various points throughout the evening with them pushing, some shoving and jostling between the two sides earlier in the day. So we do see some folks just kind of standing there in solidarity with their protest there in front of those officers. Looking now to the Sky Tracker shot, it does appear more people have moved down closer to the Omni Hotel, and that has been something that we have seen throughout the evening, people moving about in various locations throughout, and we'll see a couple people trickle in.
People all across the Twin Cities are reeling after several days of destruction.
But out of the ashes, some signs of hope. Reg Chapman is in North Minneapolis right now to talk about that. He joins us. Hi, Reg.
Hi, Amelia. Neighborhoods across the city have been busy cleaning up after a night of looting and rioting and burning down buildings. And while they were picking up the pieces, they learned of an arrest that sent everyone's spirits soaring. Out of the rubble of Thursday night's riots that stretched from South Minneapolis to the north side comes a sign of hope many have waited days to see.
Just the community coming together to beautify North Minneapolis has been amazing. When we first got out here this morning, it was devastating. But people showed up, people posted on Facebook, on their social media, and folks came out here in droves, and we can see the difference.
It began early this afternoon. People from the north side, members of Sanctuary Church, and even folks who just wanted to be part of something positive converged on the damage that was left behind from looters to fix and replace what was shattered. Felicia Perry made the plea for help.
I knew community would come, and so what you're seeing is a reflection of the work a lot of us have already been doing when we've been looking out for each other, when we've been taking care of each other, when we've been supporting each other's respective work.
While the cleanup was underway, word came down about the arrest of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in connection with George Floyd's death.
I couldn't believe it. I told people to send me proof, and they sent the proof, and we are just, we're ready to move forward, and I believe that that's the first step in moving forward.
Folks don't think that this is the final step that folks are reaching for. I think all 4 cops should be evicted.
Most picking up the pieces believe this arrest will calm the people who left this destruction behind, but they fear if justice is not served, they could be repeating this cleanup process all over again.
But right now, we got to try to recover and still get justice at the same time.
Now, almost every person we spoke with say they, too, want to see all the former Minneapolis police officers involved in Floyd's death to be arrested and convicted. Until then, they say that the protests will continue because they say they believe they have the attention of those who can help create change. Amelia?
All right, Reg, thank you.
This breaking story in downtown Minneapolis. Right now, that group of protesters that was on the 35W bridge is off the bridge, and they are marching towards Washington Avenue. Point of reference, that's near the Bobby and Steve's gas station, and that appears to be the direction that they're heading right now. Now, some of that group actually began their day in downtown this afternoon.
And Mike Max talked with them about their message. He joins us now with a little bit more on that. Hi, Maxie.
Yeah, it was something out there, Frank and Amelia, much more than I thought it would be. It looked like a few hundred would march. It turned into well over 1,000 marching through downtown Minneapolis. It was a group of mostly retired local prominent athletes that they built this around. But it quickly expanded from U.S. Bank Stadium all the way to the Hennepin Bridge, where they took a knee to pay tribute to George Floyd and ask for justice. It was an impressive showing, and for some, the first time they've taken part in something like it.
Well, I've never walked before, so when, Royce and Jim Peterson and, Richard Coffey, people like that reach out and say it's time to, stand up and make some change and be heard a little bit more, we need to do that. So I feel like that's where we're at.
We want to just make sure that everybody knows that we in the community as athletes are here and using our platform to promote justice for everybody.
And it wasn't just athletes, it grew. There was a groundswell of it, in part because of social media and in part because people saw them as they walked through downtown and they joined in. What we saw while we were there, and we were there for a lot of it, no violence whatsoever, just a whole lot of passion, a whole lot of chanting, a whole lot of what we've seen this week, but no violence at all while we were there.
Yeah, well, you forget the power of NCBSN Minnesota.
Protesters have set fire to Minneapolis' 3rd police precinct.
We want to give you a look from Sky 4. The significant thing about what's going on here symbolically is the 3rd precinct is where the officers who were involved in the George Floyd arrest were headquartered. And for them to take over this is significant for the protesters. The other thing that's we find a little unusual about this is there was such a heavy police presence at the 3rd precinct for the last 3 days, with officers barricading the front of the building, officers on the roof, the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, things to keep people away. Obviously, protesters have figured out a way to get through those barricades. You can see people occasionally throwing debris on the fire to keep it going. But the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis at Lake and Minnehaha, just a few blocks from 28th Street, appears to be the front of it on fire right now.
Yeah, we're looking from Sky 4. Well, they just turned the camera there, but to me it looked like it was at the front of the building. I don't know if it's inside the building, because at the front of the 3rd precinct there, they have a little bit of a, I don't want to say a garden or anything, but it kind of looked like it was within there. So at this point, we're not sure if it is actually inside the building, but we, of course, will try to find out the latest there.
You might have seen those laser lights, too, the green and the blue. Sometimes protesters will use those to shine at the helicopter pilot if they don't want them in the area. And that's why our Sky 4 is pulling out of the scene right now. Very, very difficult for the pilot to get any kind of orientation and see what's going on if they're getting a laser light in their face. But tonight, the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis is on fire, and a activist group said that they actually have control of the building. Of course, all this began because of the emotional death of George Floyd. The video surfaced of an officer pinning Floyd to the ground, had his his knee on his neck on Monday night. All of those officers have been fired. They're under investigation. And of course, the protests and the tension's been growing ever since.
National Guard lining the streets this morning, and this all comes after protesters rallied for a 3rd day in a row. Anger over Floyd's death, police brutality, and racism have fueled the unrest. The police station where the officer who arrested Floyd worked was torched, while other businesses were vandalized and looted. Minneapolis wasn't the only city to erupt yesterday. Protests were held across the country in New York, Colorado, Arizona, Ohio, all growing calls for charges to be filed against the 4 officers involved in Floyd's arrest. President Trump weighed in on the situation, slamming the radical left and the mayor of Minneapolis. Twitter flagged a separate tweet by the president of the United States that it said glorified violence after he called protesters thugs and appeared to threaten military action. The White House still then shared the message. However, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey fired back.
The symbolism of a building cannot outweigh the importance of life, of our officers, or the public. Weakness is refusing to take responsibility for your own actions. Weakness is pointing your finger at somebody else during a time of crisis. Donald Trump knows nothing about the strength of Minneapolis. We are strong as hell. Is this a difficult time period? Yes, but you better be damn sure that we're going to get through this.
And of course, this all comes as the FBI continues to ramp up its investigation into Floyd's death. Many of you all have seen the video of the white police officer with his knee on Floyd's neck for more than 5 minutes as Floyd pleaded that he could not breathe. So Jeff Pegues has been following all of this from Minneapolis, and he's joining us now. It was quite an eventful evening there in Minneapolis, Jeff, but what's the situation like today? Are more protests planned?
well, I'm sure there'll be sporadic protests somewhere. That's what we've seen over the last couple of days. What I'm seeing here now is that firefighters are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because look behind me. You can see the smoke billowing into the sky over there. Over here, you have another building, and this was put out yesterday. It's starting to flare up again. You can probably see the flames through what's left of a...
Minnesota as well.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is in police custody, charged with murder and manslaughter.
Chauvin is the officer pictured with his knee on the neck of George Floyd for nearly 9 minutes. For nearly 3 minutes, prosecutors say Floyd was not responsive. BCA agents took Chauvin into custody just before noon in Minneapolis today. The charges against him are third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. Esme Murphy was there as prosecutors announced the charges.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been charged by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office with murder and with manslaughter.
County Attorney Mike Freeman left open the possibility of more charges against Derek Chauvin, as well as charges against the other 3 officers.
The investigation is ongoing. We felt it appropriate to focus on the most dangerous perpetrator.
But we are leading the investigation.
The announcement of a possible charge had been widely anticipated at a news conference yesterday. The fact that it didn't happen has been criticized for fueling the frustration behind last night's protests.
We have now been able to put together the evidence that we need. Even as late as yesterday afternoon, we didn't have all that we needed. We have now found it.
Freeman would not say what that new evidence is. Now, this new charging document does contain a revelation. It says Floyd did not die of strangulation or asphyxiation. The document says Floyd had heart disease, and that the combined effects of Mr. Floyd being restrained by the police, his underlying health conditions, and any potential intoxicants in his system likely contributed to his death. The third-degree murder charge is the same charge Freeman used to successfully prosecute Minneapolis police officer Mohammed Noor in the 2017 death of Justine Ruschik-Damond. Noor is now serving 12 and a half years in prison. Esme Murphy, WCCO 4 News.
U.S. Attorney General William Barr says the Department of Justice and the FBI are conducting an independent investigation as well to determine if any federal civil rights laws were violated in the death of George Floyd. After 2...
They telling a damn lie. They know that man was asphyxiated to death. That man smothered him to death with his damn knee. Anyway, YouTube. Peace.